Further debate, the member for Parkdale, High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's certainly an honour and a privilege to speak about Bill 168 and in light, I should say, of Andrea Horwath, our leader's Bill 29. It's not an honour and a privilege to have to speak to a closure motion ever. Obviously, particularly a bill like this, where we really wanted as many deputants as possible to come forward, to hear as many stories from women as possible to come forward, and where the process was truncated, really, in a sense, is another silencing of women. You know, for many, many years, of course, in the very bones of this legislature, women have been silenced. And here we have, you know, by an ironic twist, the government silencing debate on a bill that's purporting to help women, shutting down the number of deputants, shutting down the number of speakers who can speak to the bill, shutting down the input of women again on a bill that has been a very, very long time coming. I hearken back, of course, to its genesis, which was Bill 29, Andrea Horwath's bill, a much stronger bill, a bill that the families of Laurie DuPont and Teresa Vince, families who have gone through phenomenal tragedy, really wanted to see the government put into place. And you know, quite frankly, we understand the way this place works. Opposition gets its say, the government gets its way. But we really would have expected and hoped, certainly women who are active every day in the struggle against violence against women, we really would have hoped that this bill would have been stronger in its language, and given more time to hear the deputations. In three ways, and I have to say that, you know, I think it was over 20 amendments brought forward by the New Democratic Party to strengthen Bill 168. Each and every one was voted down by this government, by the McGuinty Liberals. And you know, they aren't our amendments, Mr. Speaker. I want to make that very clear. They were the amendments suggested by the deputants. And who were these deputants? Well, just about every organization involved in the council, the shelter, the legal voice of women who have suffered from violence, and the families themselves that were the inspiration for the bill. We heard from Laurie's mother. We heard from Teresa's daughter. They came and gave such courageous testimony. They demanded such simple amendments, but amendments that would have given teeth to this bill, amendments that would have saved their daughter and their mother's lives. Those were the amendments, Mr. Speaker, that were voted down by the McGuinty Liberals. Amendments that would have saved these two women's lives. And here we are, silencing yet again the process of women speaking about violence against women. I can't I can't fathom how ironic and sad that is, particularly in the week of December 6th, Mr. Speaker. The week of December 6th, when we lament, all of us across this nation, the murder of those women at l'École Polytechnique by Marc Lépine. I mean, that truly was a silencing of women in the workplace, truly silencing women by killing them. Well, you know, it was truly a silencing of Laurie DuPont when she was killed by her estranged partner in her workplace. It was truly a silencing of Teresa Vince when she was silenced once and for all by the manager when she worked in Sears. Those two women's bodies, souls, and families, and all of those who've worked for this day, call out to hear their voices finally heard. And yet here we are, we have 27 minutes left of debate on this, possibly one of the most important pieces of legislation around women's rights. These are the three ways in which they asked, in fact demanded of the government that the bill be strengthened. Number one, they all, to a person, demanded that the definition of violence be extended to include harassment and threats leading up to violence, that it's not just about the violent act. that it's about all the little actions. In the case of Laurie DuPont, 44 different times. That the history that was written that day with her death could have been undone. 44 different times that hospital, her workplace, could have acted to save her life and refused or did not for a variety of reasons. For a variety of reasons. And not one of those 44 times was really an act of violence, Mr. Speaker, in the traditional meaning of the word. You know, when we talk about women who are under threat, we inevitably talk about women who are being stalked or some version of stalking. And when you look at the component parts of what makes up stalking behavior, you're not looking at somebody being violent in any one of them. You're looking at really, some pretty simple actions that in and of themselves could be deemed really inconsequential. But when you look at all of them together, that's when they gain consequence and import. That's when they become dangerous. This bill, as it's written, doesn't get at that. It doesn't get at that. I mean, look at the case of Teresa Vince. You see classic stalking behavior. You see a man buying coffee for her, phoning her at home, maybe once too often, maybe 10 times too often, but it's just a phone call. It's just a cup of coffee. It's just a gift. But it's all of those little behaviors put together that constitutes a danger. And really the only person who can comment on that danger with any alacrity and with any surety is the woman, the victim herself. We wanted to see a bill that would capture that would really allow women to find some safety. And unfortunately, this doesn't capture the nuance of stalking behavior. There was a deputant that talked about, for example, the role of women on the Toronto Transit Authority. I mean, imagine being a woman driving a streetcar late at night. Imagine if your estranged partner, the one who's stalking you, the one who is a threat to you, even if they haven't threatened you per se, threatened violence per se, imagine if they just sit next to you for every single shift. Now, anybody would say that stalking behavior, that's dangerous. We know where that kind of behavior leads. We lose a woman or two a week in this country because of exactly that kind of behavior that has an explosive end. It isn't explosive, as it's occurring. It isn't explosive at its beginning. It's explosive and deadly at its end, though. And only the woman